President Trump's ready for all-out war with investigation-crazed Democrats on Capitol Hill.
And I have been the most transparent president and administration in the history of our country by far. Now the House goes and starts subpoenaing. They want to know every deal I've ever done. Now Mueller, I assume, for $35 million, checked my taxes, checked my financials, which are great. Well, we're fighting all the subpoenas. Look, these aren't like impartial people. The Democrats are trying to win 2020, but they should be really focused on legislation. If you want to litigate, go after the DNC, Crooked Hillary, the dirty cops.
Trump's fighting back against an avalanche of Democratic subpoenas, including one calling for former White House counsel Don McGahn to testify about the Mueller report. Trump also saying that if Democrats do decide to impeach him, he'll fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. Democrats responding by ramping up their rhetoric. Here's Nancy Pelosi.
It's not about politics. It's about patriotism. It's an existential threat, this administration, to our democracy in terms of our Constitution. I do believe that impeachment is one of the most divisive forces, paths that we could go down to in our country. But if the path of fact-finding takes us there, we have no choice. But we're not there yet.
And Maxine Waters, who's been screaming about impeachment for 2 years, is as unhinged as ever.
I know that as leaders, they have the responsibility to try and hold our caucus together and to try and do and lead in the best way that they think will help us to be successful. If they believe that now is not the time for impeachment, they'll keep trying and they'll go down that road. We're going to have to impeach. I just wish it was sooner than later.
Okay. Well, we know what Maxine thinks, Greg. Nancy, I mean, she's the leader of the party in the House, and she said that this administration is an existential threat to our democracy.
That's crazy.
What does that even mean?
It's a very overused term, existential. An existential threat, asteroids, cataclysmic climate change, Islamic terror. Anytime you're stuck in an elevator and Maroon 5 is playing, existential threat. But this is not, and this suggestion that you are not a patriot if you somehow disagree with this idea, if you don't join in the resistance, we've talked about this before, the expanding target of denigration, you are not a patriot. Let's go back to 2015, 2016. Having concerns about Trump made total sense, right? I had so many concerns. He wasn't a politician. His personality, he was a bull in a china shop. He never knew what he was going to do. He had an interesting, colorful past. And plus, you had all these other options. You had good options in the Republican Party. You had safer options. It didn't turn out that way, but concerns made common sense. Now, people are having the same concerns 3 years later. None of their fears have materialized. He has not started any new wars. In fact, he has tried to shrink our military footprint. He has not destroyed the economy. We have a booming economy. We have the lowest unemployment in modern history. He's helped minorities and women in that world. So when you see this kind of panic going on, all you can think about is, it's okay if you're a Democrat. I get it. It's team sports. That's what you do. But if you actually believe this stuff, I would say like a never Trump Republican, it's emotional and it's irrational, it's stupid, and that's all I got to say.
Juan, where do you think the Democrats stand right now on impeachment? It looks like they're pretty split, but no one can actually name the crime that they're impeaching him for. We're talking about broad things like a threat to democracy. That's not going to stick.
That's not what we're talking about.
What are we talking about?
I'm alarmed that you don't realize that they're talking about obstruction of justice.
But how did he do that?
Oh, gosh, he tried to tell Don McGahn, and this is the point of great concern right now. He told McGahn to fire Mueller.
So he didn't fire Mueller?
No, McGahn apparently disobeyed his order. Now, Trump says nobody disobeys his order, but we've seen a litany of these kind of cases.
So wanting to fire someone, which he has every right to do under Article 2, wanting to fire someone is obstruction of justice?
Wanting to stop this investigation. This is something that I hear sometimes.
So wanting, wanting
He ordered, he calls up his lawyer, Don McGahn, and tells him to have the Attorney General fire Mueller because of conflict of interest when there was no such thing going on. And McGahn saves him, because it would have been an absolute fiasco.
But how is he obstructing
Well, let me just say,
anything?
I mean, even the Wall Street Journal this morning just said, you know, they believe McGahn. Now Trump is saying McGahn's not telling the truth. They say, you know what? Trump lies just so much, and it undermines his own credibility in so many ways. That's the Wall Street Journal conservative editorial page this morning. But let me just say, there's so many instances like this. Greg says, oh, you know, things are going so great. Forget about normal Republican positions on things like lowering the deficit or not having all these trade tariffs or not undermining democracy.
How's the country going so far, Juan?
I don't think that's going so well. I think that's why people are concerned.
You don't have any evidence.
And you also say, Greg, oh, he's the most transparent president ever. If he's so transparent, why is he trying to stop Don McGahn from testifying?
Because enough is enough. He's given over 1.4 million documents. Everyone has testified. He delivered written answers. Mueller looked at his taxes. There's nothing there. Why are the Democrats continuing to push this issue when they know that Mueller saw everything he needed to see?
All you can do is shout, because he wouldn't even talk to Mueller. He did not testify for Mueller.
Yeah,
but
he gave written responses.
The point right now is that the Democrats are going to subpoena so much information. They're going to, I guess they could hold McGahn in, you know, contempt of Congress if he refuses to testify. But what the president and the White House are doing is basically slow-walking it and saying, you know what, we're Stonewall, we'll slow-walk, we'll end up in the courts, but we will not cooperate. That is not transparent.
They've already cooperated fully. Mueller actually said that they had full cooperation. And right now, these two people, McGahn, Trump, special counsel, they're all under the executive branch. I mean, there's no reason that they can't just claim executive privilege and say stuff.
Because they didn't claim it earlier.
They can claim it whenever they want.
Oh, no, they can't.
Why? Yes, they can. They will. They will. Watch. Watch.
Because he didn't say that when it was about McGahn testifying to Mueller.
I'm trying to ask Emily.
I'm just saying it's obvious.
Here's what the president has on his side if he claims executive privilege for himself or McGahn moving forward. Time and enforcement. What I mean by that is that subpoenas and orders of contempt or being held in contempt expires with that congressional duration. Exactly. So all the president has to do is get to January of 2021. And also, it is the courts, unlike the Supreme Court's role in impeachment, which is zero, obviously, for claims of privilege or for subpoenas or contempt, they do play a part. So he can absolutely string it out. And I think that's a really powerful tool because at the end of it, it will be him and McGahn that shines rather than Congress, who has nothing to show for it.
Okay. And Hillary Clinton, who did not win the presidency in 2016. She's written an op-ed.
Fox News alert.
She's written an op-ed in the Washington Post, I believe.
Yes.
Have you read it?
I skimmed it right before because it posted about 4:55 p.m. Basically, she's saying...
whoa, Greg's got glasses on. Look at those things.
These are my new glasses.
Those are sharp.
I was waiting for somebody to notice.
I like it. Well, Professor Gutfeld, excuse me.
Yes, Professor Gutfeld.
Yes, that's good.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm like, he's mesmerizing.
He's very distracting, Dana. I know.
So,
all right, I'm taking them off.
Hillary Clinton basically says, I know that I'm not necessarily the best messenger. Yes, I obviously lost, and I think it is due to Russian interference, but I also speak as a former senator and a former Secretary of State, and Russian interference is a big problem, but she's saying that Congress should basically go as far as they can to fill in the gaps of the Mueller report. So that's the Hillary Clinton
What
angle.
gaps were there? I mean,
you know what was interesting?
I know. I'm pondering myself what gaps there were. He was there, I think, 2 years, and it cost $35 million. I think it was pretty exhaustive.
Bernie.
Yes to that. What I thought was interesting was how she closed it, which basically said the most important part, the vital role, is what the citizens play. And she used that to say, so therefore advocate for an impeachment proceedings rather than electorally, which, as we all know, how that happened and benefited her.
You know what? This impeachment thing, it's only going to help Trump because it just cedes all the media turf to him. And I think was it Sanders who recognized that first. He says, like, we got to start talking about our stuff.
Right.
This is just going to, and Trump is going to eat this up.
Right. Well, again, wanting to do something is not a crime. And by the way, there was no crime charge. So let's move on.